Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, people have been asking me to do an update on the United States and what's happening, and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So we're going to look at that. Let's see here. We're going to put up the charts of all three, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and the United States chart that I use. So putting that up, the first thing is, let's start with Joe Biden. Let's start talking about what on earth is going on. I mean, things couldn't be more disruptive. And nobody knows really what's going on because the media is so split. There's two different medias. You know, one you get from CNN and one you get from Fox News. They're completely split and opposite. And either people follow one or the other, and I know what you're going to say. I don't follow the news because it's so depressing. I agree. But it's interesting to see where the consciousness of those that are leading the world, what they're doing. So let's put up Joe Biden's chart. We've looked at it a number of times and see where we stand right now because there's so much happening in the world. And honestly, his planets, K2 crossing over his sun, his Venus, weakened him tremendously. And that's been in the past few months. And he's not strong anymore with that. This is like, it almost took him out. And as a matter of fact, he's still going. And this would, this would take most people out. So he's got a little help here. I don't know if it's angels or if it's doctors or what, but he's got a little help here. Now we look at his chart from the aspect of where the planets are going in terms of the eclipses, because eclipses are so much a predictor in astrology, as well as where Saturn is. And let's talk about where eclipses are, because the eclipses are based on where Rahu and Ketu are. Wherever Rahu and Ketu are going to be the points that cause eclipses. And the thing that has me concerned here is that the eclipses are now happening in Aries and Libra, and President Biden has his moon in Aries, and he has his Mars and Mercury in Libra. And pretty much right now, where we stand with this eclipse happening in April, we have K2 on his Mercury. So K2 is 28 degrees currently and will hover around 28, 27 degrees during the time of this solar eclipse, which happens on April 30th. So to have the eclipse, but the nodes, K2 on his Mercury, is really tough. I mean, this is going to weaken him even more. And I mean, physically, this is in his 12th house. And let me just say here, the 12th house can deal with hospitals. It can deal with places of getting away from the world, but it's also foreign lands and countries. And he has been doing a lot of that, traveling to foreign places and dealing with foreign affairs. But K2 is the indicator of losses. And this is not good being on his Mercury. And from his chart with Scorpio rising, Mercury rules the 8th house. Now the 8th house has many connotations, but the most part it deals with endings, it can deal with death, but it also deals with scandals. And I believe there's a lot coming up with scandals and endings. That's what I see with K2 being on his Mercury. Now, his Mercury sits in the 12th house, so this is hidden affairs as well. Hidden affairs with what? Foreign lands and countries. So K2 is there right now. Now let's pull up the United States chart side by side. Because what I find very, very interesting about the United States chart is that Biden's K2 sits at 7 degrees of Aquarius, and that is the moon for the United States. K2's losses. So either there's losses for the United States through him, or there is a loss for him through being president of the United States. One way or another, this ties him incredibly to the U.S. And many times that's how I predict if someone will become president. They have to have planets that line up with this chart for the United States, and he does. And the moon in the United States, very interesting, is in the 3rd house. And the 3rd house deals with the media, communications. And the fact that his K2 sits on the moon, I think has a lot to do with something with communications that possibly he has suppressed, or something about his party has suppressed in the communications. And because the moon in his chart rules the 8th house, it can deal with scandals. It absolutely can deal with scandals. So this is speculative to this point, but it's a very strong speculation. Let me put it this way. So looking at the United States chart, one thing I want you to pay attention to is where Mars is. Mars sits at 0 degrees of Gemini. And what is coming in October, on October 30th, is going to be where Mars is going to station at 1 degree of Gemini. And wherever a planet stations, if it hits one of your planets exactly like this, it's meaning an event will occur. Mars deals with anger. Mars deals with war and frustration. Something's happening with the United States. And I've tied it into China because Xi Jinping has his sun at 1 degree of Gemini. So he is going to be enraged and angry about something. And it concerns the United States here as well, because the next chart that we're going to study to give you an idea of what could possibly be happening this year is Kamala Harris's chart. Let's put hers up there as well, because Kamala Harris has Rahu and her ascendant the same degree, 1 degree of Gemini. It's where Mars stations. And this is tying in the United States. There is massive events and anger happening in the United States. So when does Mars station again? It's going to be October 30th. You know what else happens in October that is monumental? Almost around the same time, there's going to be a solar eclipse. And this solar eclipse is going to be a doozy. We're going to be talking a lot about this because this solar eclipse in October, first of all, it will be at 7 degrees of Libra. Look at Kamala Harris's chart. This is huge when you have eclipses that hit planets in your chart. Particularly, it's very close to her sun. She was born under a perfect full moon. Notice the sun and the moon exactly opposing one another. This is going to really catapult her into a position, Mars being on her ascendant, stationing, going retrograde. And also, let me just say this, the eclipse is going to be almost exactly on her Mercury, which rules her chart. in the 5th house, dealing with, well, actually it deals with the mind, the awareness, how we think, and really the 5th house is our intelligence. So here's what's happening. K2 is going to cross over her Mercury. But at the time that we're looking at this eclipse, the eclipse itself is 7 degrees. So this is giant. But let me back up a little bit more, because this is not just exploding in October. For her, yes, it will be. But notice where her Mars sits. Her Mars sits at 27 degrees of Cancer. And why is that important? Because Saturn is about to oppose that. And Saturn is going to be opposing her natal Mars April 1st. So, explosive events in April. But then it's going to retrograde back. It's not finished. Even though we'll get a little bit of a breather when Saturn goes into Aquarius the end of April till the end of July, but it's headed right back into Capricorn when it retrogrades in August 11th. This is important. Saturn will be opposing her Mars for the 2nd time. Then by December 28th, Saturn is opposing her Mars for the 3rd time. Now her Mars sits in the 2nd house. And it's debilitated in Cancer, even though it has redeeming qualities by the fact that it's in Parivartana with the moon. But let me just say this. Saturn is transiting her 8th house. This is the most difficult house of the chart. Saturn's in the 8th, aspecting her Mars, which her Mars is a difficult planet, if not the most difficult planet for Gemini ascendants, because it rules the 6th house of struggles and enemies, and the 11th house, which doesn't help at all. Mars is a problem. Saturn aspecting her Mars. She could be sick, she could be attacked. And in the 2nd house, that is actually a Marka house. That is a very difficult house. So the Saturn-Mars opposition is causing great stress to her chart. But the eclipse coming over her Mercury and her Sun is monumental this year. And it tells me that something is due to happen that is going to be a huge problem for the United States, because I'm seeing problems with the president and problems with the vice president. And I see all around them war and destruction. I don't see either of them being in a good position, health-wise, physically, or able to protect the country. Everything's about to explode. There's great destruction coming forth by studying the charts of these two leaders and all the problems that are coming for the United States concerning war. So what's interesting, though, is the eclipses are affecting both of them. For Joe Biden, the eclipse is in April affecting him the hardest. But for Kamala, it's the eclipse in October that's hitting her the hardest. So I don't necessarily know if President Biden will be able to be president by the end of the year for sure. Or it could even be that there's something happening way before that, because it puts Kamala in a position that she is in trouble. major trouble, and she is going to have to be on guard. And all of us are going to have to be on guard. So let me just say, the astrology is telling me a lot that great destruction, problems, we haven't seen nothing yet, unfortunately. And we need massive help and prayers. So please be positive. Be able to meditate, concentrate to bring peace to our planet, because it looks like there's not very much peace at hand throughout the rest of this year. So hopefully I'm completely wrong with everything I'm looking at. Hopefully I'm wrong. But it seems astrology, in my book, has never been wrong. So whether or not it's the astrologer's way of reading the chart or not. But with that, I'll close. So that's an update, and I'll keep you posted. So if you would like more information on me, go to my website, galacticcenter.org. And remember, if you would like to study astrology with me, go to my university website, which is University of Vedic Astrology.com. Thank you.